Chapter 1. Under the Glass. The sound of the rain hitting the panoramic windows was almost hypnotic. From the top of SkyOne Tower, the tallest building in the city, Adrián Romero watched the lights that twinkled like fireflies in the darkness. His office, minimalist and impeccably designed, was a glass capsule suspended among the clouds. He, however, seemed very far from there. He was 37 years old and was the CEO of Romero Global Investments, an emporium with tentacles in sectors ranging from renewable energy to artificial intelligence. Forbes magazine called him the architect of the future. His colleagues called him the silent shark. And those who knew him closely, though that was a very small number, knew that behind that imperturbable face there was something that never quite healed. That afternoon, the city seemed still. In his office, a silence floated that weighed more than the white marble of the floor. Only the soft taps of his pen signing million-dollar contracts were heard, until the intercom buzzed. "Mr. Romero," said the voice of his personal assistant, Clara, "Miss Estefania del Valle has arrived. She says she doesn't have an appointment, but that you will know who she is." Adrián remained motionless. That name, that voice, though distorted by the system, shook him to the core as if time had rewound 10 years. Tell her to come in," he finally said, without looking anywhere. The door opened slowly. She entered with the same lethal elegance she had always possessed, a black dress, a long coat, and heels that resonated with each step. But what stood out most was the letter she carried in her hands. "Hello, Adrián," she said, as if not a day had passed. "Estefania, I thought you were gone forever." She placed the letter on his desk. "I thought so too, but this changes everything." He didn't open the envelope. He looked directly into her eyes. There was love in that gaze, but also fear, a fear that came from deep within. "What is this?" he asked, his voice low. "It's a truth that has been buried for 8 years, a truth that belongs to you, and that will change your life forever." Chapter 2. What is not said. The envelope still lay on the desk, intact, sealed with a red wax seal that seemed out of place in Adrián's digital world. He didn't touch it. He looked at it as if he feared it would burn with just a touch. Estefania sat down in front of him without waiting for permission. That attitude was a relic of their past together. For 4 years, they were inseparable, partners, lovers, accomplices, until one day she disappeared without a trace, without a note, without a call. "Why now?" Adrián asked with a frown. 8 years, Estefania, 8 years in silence, and you come to see me with a letter." She observed him with a mixture of nostalgia and determination. "Because for 8 years I believed it was the right thing to do. But now circumstances have changed, and I can no longer remain silent." Adrián took the envelope with tense hands. The paper crackled between his fingers. He opened it carefully, as if by doing so he were unearthing something that should never have come to light. Inside was a single sheet, brief, precise, and devastating. "Adrián, The day I left, I didn't do it out of hatred nor out of pride. I did it to protect someone else, someone who now needs to know who you are. Her name is Lucia, and she is your daughter." The world stopped. For a few seconds, only the ticking of the clock hanging on the wall was heard, each sound more strident than the last. "Is this a joke?" he murmured, but it wasn't a real question. He knew. Deep down, he knew. "Lucia is 7 years old," Estefania said, her voice trembling. "She's brilliant. She has your eyes. And your knack for business. She likes to assemble impossible puzzles and question everything. But now, she's sick, Adrián." His heart leapt, as if a dam had broken inside his chest. What does she have?" "A genetic disease. She needs a transplant. And you are the only compatible match." Adrián shot up. He walked to the window. He looked at the city, but he didn't see it. His thoughts were a whirlwind. He had a daughter he never knew, a daughter who now needed him to stop being the cold, calculating man and become something he never knew how to be, a father. "Where is she?" he asked without looking at her. "In New York, at Mount Sinai Hospital. She's with my sister. Pack your things, we're leaving tonight." Estefania looked at him with contained astonishment. You'll come?" He turned. His eyes, for the first time in a long time, were moist. "I'm not going to lose a daughter I didn't even know I had." Chapter 3. Blood and Legacy. The private jet took off that same night from the company's private airport. Adrián wasted no time. He left his team in charge of everything, delegated multi-million-dollar meetings, canceled an interview with Bloomberg, and didn't even inform his mother, who lived 2 floors below him in the same luxury building. The silence during the flight was thick. Estefania remained seated at the other end of the cabin, looking out the window as if she didn't know how to fill the abyss that separated them. "Why did you never tell me?" He broke the silence without looking at her. She took a deep breath. "Because I was afraid. Because you weren't the man Lucia needed. You were pure ambition, Adrián. You always were." He clenched his fists. "And what right did you have to decide for me?" "None. But I had the right to protect her." Adrián lowered his head. It pained him to accept that at some point she was right. Back then, he wouldn't have known how to raise a daughter. He didn't even know how to keep someone close without destroying them with his pace of life. Hours later, they arrived in New York. An armored car was waiting for them. The journey to the hospital was silent, except for the rumble of early morning traffic. When they arrived at Mount Sinai, Adrián felt small for the first time in years. Nothing in his life had prepared him for what he was about to face. They entered the pediatric area, and a nurse guided them to a room where a dark-haired girl slept, with the same angular features as him. Lucia, his daughter. He watched her for a long time without saying anything. A knot tightened his throat. The machines beside her bed blinked rhythmically, and each beep seemed like a hammer blow against his chest. "She doesn't know who you are," Estefania whispered. "I just told her that her father couldn't be there." "Why? For what? To protect me?" "No," she replied, and this time her voice broke. "To protect her from disappointment." The sentence pierced him like a knife. He felt that everything he had built, the power, the reputation, the wealth, was crumbling before that small, sleeping body. None of it could buy back the lost time. None of it could return the years he wasn't her father. "I want to meet her," he said, his voice tense, "but not as the CEO of Romero Global. I want her to know me as who I am, or who I want to learn to be." Estefania nodded, though a tear ran down her cheek. "Then prepare yourself, because if you're going to enter her life, you can't just leave when you want to." Adrián didn't answer, but something in his eyes made it clear he wasn't planning on leaving. Not this time. Chapter 4. Enemies in the Shadows. 3 days had passed since Adrián met Lucia. He hadn't yet introduced himself as her father. He simply called himself Adrián, his mother's friend, a visitor who brought her stories, logic games, and a patience he himself didn't know he possessed. The girl was brilliant, curious, quick to laugh, but with an analytical gaze. Every word she said pierced his soul. He had lost years with her, irrecoverable years. But while he was discovering himself in his daughter's face at the hospital, things were beginning to falter in his financial empire. Clara, his trusted assistant, called him on the morning of the 4th day. "Mr. Romero, I need you to hear this." Adrián answered from a private room in the hospital, equipped for his meetings. "Speak." Clara's voice lowered. "We received an anonymous request this morning, a threat. If you don't publicly announce that you have a hidden daughter and resign as CEO within the next 72 hours, they will release sensitive documents from the energy division in Qatar." Adrián frowned. "What kind of documents?" "Projects not yet approved. Confidential negotiations with the local government. If that leaks, we could face an international investigation." "And they know about Lucia?" "It seems so, and not only that. Someone sent them a copy of the birth certificate with your name crossed out, but clearly recognizable." Adrián's face hardened. "This is no coincidence." He hung up and paced back and forth. Estefania entered just then. "Is something wrong?" He didn't answer immediately. He wondered if he should protect her or make her part of the battlefield. "Someone within my company is using Lucia's existence as a weapon," he finally said. "They want to force me to resign." Estefania looked at him perplexed. Who would do such a thing? Adrián narrowed his eyes. "There's only one man bold enough to try something like this. Dario Montalvo." That name made her take a step back. Dario was Adrián's former partner. They had founded everything together, but 5 years ago, They broke their alliance after a scandal that almost destroyed Romero Global. Adrián managed to save the company, but Dario swore revenge. "He won't stop," she said. "You know him. He doesn't just want your place. He wants to destroy you." Adrián nodded. "And if he finds out I'm donating marrow to save Lucia, he'll use it to say I'm unstable, emotionally vulnerable. He'll try to paint my absence as executive negligence." Estefania approached firmly. "Then what will you do?" He looked at her with an intensity that left no doubt. "I'm going to save my daughter, and I'm going to protect my empire. But if Dario wants a war, he'll get one." Chapter 5. The Art of Clean Warfare. The New York sky was gray, almost in sync with the storm brewing in Adrián Romero's life. Inside the hospital, Lucia slept with an oxygen mask and an IV in her thin arm. The diagnosis was clear. The window to perform the transplant was closing in less than 10 days. Adrián knew it, and he also knew that his prolonged absence was a risk to the empire he had built. So he called an emergency meeting with his legal team and his inner circle via video conference from a secure room in the hospital. "We are not going to yield to threats," he said firmly, observing the faces of his executives projected on the screen. "But we are not going to act without proof either. I need to know who leaked that information." Clara, from the headquarters in Manhattan, spoke quickly. "We are auditing every internal communication channel, but there's something else. Dario has been seen several times in meetings with Olivia Serrano, the financial press director of the New York Herald." Adrián clenched his jaw. "Olivia was my friend, even something more a while ago. But she's dangerous when she allies with enemies." "That's not all," Clara interrupted. "Dario presented a package of Class B shares yesterday for a possible merger with a defense technology firm in Switzerland. If he gets approval from the investment committee, you'll be exposed." "With what objective?" "To eliminate you. To turn your story with Lucia into a media scandal. To paint you as an unstable man incapable of leading the company." Adrián nodded, his mind already 10 steps ahead. "Then this is what we'll do. I want a counter-campaign. Discreet, strategic. We'll leak that I'm temporarily out for a minor medical procedure, but without specifying details. And I want my lawyers preparing a formal complaint against Dario for attempted corporate coercion." "That could make him back down," Clara said. "But if he counterattacks with the confidential documents—" Adrián narrowed his eyes. "He doesn't have them. He only thinks he has them. We're going to make him believe he has something more valuable, my resignation. And when he's about to show his cards, we'll show the real ones." At dusk, Adrián entered Lucia's room. She was awake, watching cartoons on a tablet. "Hello, Adrián," she said with a smile. "Hello, little one. How are you feeling today?" "Tired. But Mom says I'm going to get better." He sat beside her. He hesitated. Then slowly he took her hand. Can I tell you a secret? Lucia looked at him intrigued. A grown-up secret? Yes, but an important one. It's about me and about you. She nodded, lowering her voice as if she already knew it had to be something solemn. What is it? I'm not just your mom's friend. I'm your dad. The silence lasted a second, an eternity for him. Lucia looked at him, her eyes wide. Then she smiled with the purest innocence. I knew you looked like me, she said, and squeezed his hand with unexpected strength. And does that mean you're going to tell me bedtime stories like dads do? Adrián felt something inside him break and rebuild at the same time. Yes, I'll tell you all the stories in the world. And in that instant, he understood that there were things more valuable than his name on the cover of a magazine, more powerful than any corporate action, and that he would do whatever it took to protect that little girl, even if it meant destroying Dario. Chapter 6. Betrayal and Counterattack. This chapter title was missing in Spanish. I've added a logical one based on content. If you prefer no title, I can remove it, or you can provide one. The operating room was ready. The doctors at Mount Sinai had confirmed that Adrián was a 100% compatible donor for Lucia, an unusually favorable case. The surgery was scheduled for within 72 hours. If all went well, his daughter could regain a normal life. But outside that aseptic and silent room, chaos was beginning to splatter his empire. In the Romero Global Tower, located on Fifth Avenue, Clara received an unexpected visit. None other than Raphael Dumas, the company's legal director, a man who had been Adrián's right hand since his beginnings, always discreet, always loyal. Clara, he said, entering without knocking, I need you to stop everything related to the complaint against Dario. It's a direct order from the board. Clara looked at him without concealing her astonishment. What do you mean? An order from the board? Adrián hasn't approved that. It's not necessary, Raphael replied, his expression darkening. There was an extraordinary meeting last night. Dario presented evidence that could compromise the company's financial integrity if it comes to light. They said it's better to negotiate. Clara narrowed her eyes. And you agree with that? He hesitated, but the silence said more than any words. I can't risk my career, Clara. This isn't just Adrián. It's the whole firm. And you should think about the same thing. I've already made a decision, she said firmly, and it's not to betray someone who trusted me when I didn't even know how to use a printer. Raphael left without saying more. But in his gaze, there was something Clara wouldn't forget. A deep fear and a buried guilt. Meanwhile, Adrián was reviewing documents from an adjoining room in the hospital. A cybersecurity team he hired from Zurich had just confirmed something key. The leaks weren't coming from outside, but from an internal server protected by passwords shared by only 4 people. And one of them was Raphael. "So it was you," he whispered, clenching his teeth. He called Clara. "I know everything now," he said bluntly. "Raphael sold information, and the board is caving." "I know, I saw it, but Dario hasn't won yet. The merger contract with the Swiss isn't approved. If we sabotage it, he'll lose influence." "What do you need?" Adrián asked. "A face, a voice that has power. And right now, that's you. But first, you'll have to get out of the operating room." Adrián smiled bitterly. "Then tell the world that the financial monster stopped to save his daughter." Hours later, Clara executed the first phase of the plan. In a surprise interview with the country's most important financial channel, she announced that Adrián Romero, current CEO of Romero Global, would undergo an urgent operation to save the life of a miner who changed his way of seeing the world. She didn't mention names. She didn't mention ties. But she did speak eloquently of an emotional rebirth that reminds us that behind every power suit, there is a heart that beats. The news went viral in minutes, and Dario didn't take long to respond. "Do you think a sentimental show is going to save him?" Dario growled in a secret call with Raphael. "I want you to get the full transplant report and leak it. I want the world to know who that girl is." "I can't help you anymore," Raphael said on the other end, his voice flat. "This got out of our hands." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you're on your own, Dario. I'm no longer part of this." And he hung up. On the night before the operation, Adrián visited Lucia's room for the last time before entering the operating room. She was sleeping soundly. Estefania approached and took his hand. "Are you sure?" "The only thing I've been sure of in my entire life." He leaned over his daughter and whispered in her ear, "When you wake up, your dad will still be here, and I'm never going to leave again." Then he walked towards the operating room door with the firm step of someone about to fight the most important battle of his life. Not for a company, nor for power, but for love. Chapter 7. Reborn with Scars. The operating room was silent except for the rhythmic beeps of the monitors. Adrián lay unconscious, his firm body now vulnerable, surrendered to the scalpel. The medical team worked with millimetric precision. The procedure was delicate but necessary. His bone marrow was the only real hope to save Lucia. Meanwhile, in the waiting room, Estefania held her daughter's hands, who was also sleeping under sedation. Clara arrived minutes later, her eyes filled with anxiety and an envelope in her hand. "This is from Raphael," she said in a low voice. "He left it in my office before he left. He says it's his way of repairing what he did." Estefania opened the envelope. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note. "You can't change the past, but you can decide who you choose to protect today." Clara connected the drive to her laptop. What they discovered was devastating. "They're recordings," Clara whispered, "of calls between Dario and several board members. They were planning not only to expose Adrián, but to crash the stock price to buy control with external investors." "And why did Raphael have them?" "Because he recorded them all, maybe waiting for the moment to redeem himself." Estefania thought for a second. Then she spoke decisively. "We have to show them." "If we do it now, without preparing a legal defense, it could blow up in our faces," Clara warned. "But if we wait until Adrián wakes up and he presents them, it will be different." "And if he doesn't wake up?" Clara looked at her. She didn't answer. Hours passed like slow blades. In the recovery room, Adrián didn't react. The doctors said it was normal, that each body responded differently. But the silence, the waiting, the uncertainty were torture. Lucia was already awake. She smiled weakly, not fully understanding what her father had done for her. "Is he asleep like me?" she asked. Estefania nodded, her voice breaking. "Yes, my love, but he's going to wake up. He promised he would be here." Lucia looked at the window, then said something that left Estefania speechless. "He's my superhero now, even if he has to fight while asleep." The next day, in a secret meeting room in Switzerland, Dario presented his final plan. Using partially falsified documents, he tried to convince European investors that Romero Global was in internal chaos. He offered them a majority stake in exchange for their support. In less than a week, Adrián Romero will be history. With this signature, you will be the new masters of one of the most valuable conglomerates on the continent. But just as one of the investors was about to sign, a phone rang. One of the assistants answered, listened, and then paled. "Mr. Montalvo, there's something you should see." They put a live broadcast from New York on the screen. Adrián, still in a hospital gown and pale as a shadow, spoke to the cameras, supported by Clara at his side. "My name is Adrián Romero, and this message is for everyone who bet against me. For days they have tried to bring me down, but they forgot one thing. I didn't build this company with fear. I built it with vision and with loyalty. Today, as a father and as CEO, I publicly denounce an attempted corporate coup led by Dario Montalvo, with attached evidence that has already been delivered to the federal prosecutor's office." Silence in the Swiss room. One by one, the investors began to close their folders. Dario tried to speak, but no one was listening anymore. That night, Adrián returned to the hospital. His body was weak, but his spirit stronger than ever. Lucia watched him enter, and her eyes filled with light. "I knew you'd come back. I promised I'd never leave again, remember?" She nodded, hugging him tightly. "Are you not going to work so much anymore?" He laughed, a sound he hadn't made in years. "I'm going to work for you, for us, because there is no empire more valuable than this moment." In a glass tower thousands of kilometers away, Dario Montalvo watched everything crumble, His name in the headlines was no longer the brilliant strategist, but the deadliest corporate traitor of the year. And in the reflection of the screen, he only saw himself, defeated, alone, and forgotten. Chapter 8. The Price of Truth. 3 weeks after the operation, Adrián had become a different man. He was no longer the unattainable CEO who only spoke in figures and with shareholders. He was a father, and also, for the first time in a long time, a man at peace. Lucia had successfully left the hospital. She was recovering quickly, and her energy seemed to increase every day. Adrián had taken her to live with him in his penthouse, where he adapted a room just for her. Estefania also lived with them, although neither of them had yet spoken of getting back together. Wounds didn't heal so easily. That Saturday morning, the 3 of them were having breakfast on the terrace when Clara arrived with a folder in her hand. Lucia was playing with a 1,000-piece puzzle, while the adults spoke cautiously. "It's the final report from the prosecutor's office," Clara said. Dario was officially charged with coercion, corporate extortion, and international fraud. Adrián looked at her without emotion. "How much time will he face?" 5 to 8 years, if he doesn't accept a deal. Whether he accepts it or not, it doesn't matter anymore. He destroyed himself. "That doesn't mean everything is fine," Clara added seriously. "The media still see you as a symbol of privilege. To many, you're still the shark who disguised himself as a savior. There's pressure for you to resign." Adrián nodded slowly. He had already thought about it, and he had made a decision. The following Monday, in a massive press conference broadcast worldwide, Adrián appeared in a simple suit, without a tie, his hair longer, his voice more human. "For years, I led Romero Global with an iron fist. I thought my value was in what I could build, control, and multiply. But I was wrong. My real value is not in the buildings that bear my name, but in the people I can care for, starting with my daughter, Lucia." Flashes exploded like fireworks. "Today, I officially announce my resignation as CEO of Romero Global. I am retiring not because I lost, but because I finally understood what it truly means to win." A murmur ran through the room. "I have appointed Clara Varela as the new Chief Executive Officer. She represents a new generation with vision and principles. From today on, I will dedicate myself to social causes, youth leadership, and to living something I always postponed, my own life." In the following days, Clara took the reins of the company with a firm hand and admirable clarity. Raphael, by his own decision, exiled himself from the business world and began working as an advisor for charitable foundations. And Adrián, free from the chains of power, began to rediscover what it meant to be simply a man, a father, a complete human being. One April afternoon, Estefania found him writing in his leather notebook in the park by the river. Lucia was playing a few meters away with other children. "What are you writing?" she asked, sitting next to him. "A story," Adrián replied without looking at her. About a man who had everything, but didn't know what anything was worth. She smiled. And how does it end? I don't know yet. It depends on whether the woman who once loved him is willing to write the last chapters with him. Estefania lowered her gaze. Then she took his hand gently. If he learns to write with his heart, maybe so. He looked at her, and for the first time in years, he knew he didn't have to pretend to be invincible. He had something more valuable: truth, family, and a second chance. End.